Details about a University of Minnesota grad student detained by ICE. That student is now suing President Trump, among others, and demanding to be released immediately.
Imagine a world where the gateway to knowledge is also the entrance to hell. At 4:12 in the morning, 287 federal agents silently advanced into Atlantic Hills University to dismantle an empire of darkness hidden beneath the guise of education. Behind the halo of Principal Amina lay $4.2 billion in funds and a mysterious island offshore where top-tier students suddenly became commodities assigned prices. Is this merely an academic scandal or the most sophisticated criminal network in history? Join me now as we expose this horrifying secret. The message sent to those who traffic in death is crystal clear. Get the hell out of this country. Your free time is over because a new order has been established in the Oval Office. But today's story doesn't start with politics. It begins with numbers that know how to lie. More than $3.1 million in student aid vanished without a single explanation. Suddenly, 62 ghost accounts appeared overnight. 14 secret transactions fed a slush fund right inside the university campus, and every document, every trace points to one single name, Dr. Abdurak Mahmoud Warsame. What at first glance appeared to be minor accounting errors, actually exposed something far more horrifying. We're talking about female students who were quietly funneled into mentorship trips, but in reality were controlled through shady connections to transnational criminal organizations. Dirty money was funneled through university programs, and vulnerable young women were tracked, managed, and treated like commodities. This isn't mere mismanagement. This is a dangerous system hiding in plain sight right in front of us. Let me show you the full picture. It was a raid that sent shockwaves through the history of education. 287 federal agents sealed off the entire university campus after a financial audit uncovered misconduct amounting to $2.6 billion. At 4:12 in the morning, the once quiet grounds of Atlantic Hills University were no longer quiet. Federal vehicles rolled in without sirens blaring, headlights turned off or dimmed to low. The agents moved with the precision of iron discipline. Their target wasn't the dormitories, not the lecture halls. It was the office of the university president, Dr. Amina Hassan Warsame. The door was reinforced with steel. The walls were completely soundproofed. Inside that powerful room, investigators found 2 sealed safes, 6 passports under entirely different identities, and 14 international bank files directly linked to overseas accounts. But what was even more terrifying lay further down the service path. A warehouse sat just outside the university property boundary. When the agents opened it, the air seemed to freeze solid. 680 carefully sealed crates, each one marked with labels closely tied to the Sinaloa cartels. There were no professors, no staff members, and no sign whatsoever of the university president. Over the course of 5 years, more than $4.2 billion in unimaginable sum and unexplained financial flows had quietly moved through university programs, research grants, and mentorship initiatives. This isn't academic misconduct. This is a system, and it has just been dragged into the light. For many years, Dr. Amina Hassan Warsame was admired as a reformer. She was the ever-smiling president of Atlantic Hills University, speaking at conferences, awarding scholarships, and tirelessly promoting her signature women's mentorship program. To parents, she was the guardian of opportunity. To students, she was the embodiment of achievement. But federal investigators quickly realized that her public image and private activities were 2 completely separate worlds. The files recovered from her office revealed that the so-called mentorship initiative wasn't guidance at all. It was a recruitment funnel. Amina had kept detailed lists of more than 80 young women labeled as high potential. Each one was meticulously noted with their financial hardships, family issues, or academic ambitions. These weren't mentorship evaluations. They were assessments of vulnerability. The agents discovered travel documents for 27 leadership trips that were never linked to any legitimate university partners. Instead, the destinations were private docks, offshore resorts, and unregistered yacht marinas. At least 14 students mysteriously withdrew or took indefinite leaves of absence after participating in these trips, with zero follow-up or tracking from the university. Financial audits triggered even louder alarm bells. Over more than 3 years, Amina had authorized nearly $190 million into what was called the Student Advancement Fund. Only a small fraction ever reached legitimate programs. The rest moved quietly through consulting firms and international partners tied to well-known human trafficking corridors. The deeper investigators looked, the clearer the truth became. Dr. Amina wasn't preparing these young women for success. She was deliberately, methodically selecting them for a far darker purpose. On January 3, 2026, at 3 in the morning off the coast of California, 78 miles from the mainland, the ocean vanished beneath a thick wall of fog. Ahead of it lay a private island, a fortress disguised as a luxury resort. By the time federal analysts finished mapping the veterans' pipeline, one undeniable truth emerged. Holloway's empire could not be dismantled with subpoenas alone. It required a war. And so at 3:58 in the morning, beneath a lead-gray sky, the largest veterans-related law enforcement operation in Chicago history was launched. Inside a dimly lit warehouse converted into a command center, 300 federal agents from the FBI, IC, EDEAD, HS, and VAOIG stood shoulder-to-shoulder, faces set hard. Radios. The island operated 1 week each month, drawing a constant rotation of wealthy executives and powerful brokers with influence from offshore networks spanning Europe, the Middle East, and North America. Behind every invitation lay secrecy. Behind every event lay silence. And tonight, that silence is about to end. More than 500 federal personnel, FBI, DHS, DEA, ICE, and the Coast Guard have converged under a single top priority mission: rescue the women. Secure every suspect. Prevent anyone from escaping. No media, no announcements, no warnings. 3:18 in the morning. The fog grew thicker, heavy, swallowing the horizon whole. Command briefings had identified 3 approach corridors, not for show, not for reckless force, but for control for the safety of the hostages inside. As the island's lights dimmed in the mist, tension enveloped every agent on the water. There would be no second chance. 3:41 in the morning. Movement detected at the main courtyard. Inside, they found forged medical passports, oxygen masks, restraint straps, and a flight manifest for 17 patients scheduled to depart that week. On the wall behind hung a chilling directive: non-compliant units, sedate immediately. At 4:17 in the morning in Dubai's free trade zone, simultaneously, UAE authorities, guided by FBI intelligence, raided a construction camp where veterans were being forced to labor. Floodlights snapped on. Guards fled. 12 survivors stood trembling in the dust. Panic erupted inside the compound as the guards scrambled not toward the hostages, but toward the escape corridors lining the island's service docks. That was the exact moment the federal command had prepared for. 4:02 in the morning. The corridors were cleared, the inner courtyard secured, the central structure breached in sequence. Doors unlocked. Calming voices echoed through the halls. The women inside didn't cheer. They didn't speak. Some simply cried. The others stood frozen, exhausted, silent, unsure whether the rescue was real or just another cruel illusion. But they were no longer alone. Within minutes, the main compound was fully under control. No aircraft took off. No vessels slipped away. No documents were set ablaze. And for the first time in 5 years, the island fell quiet. Not out of fear, but out of justice. As the federal teams pushed deeper into the island compound, the true scale of the operation didn't reveal itself through gunfire or confrontation. It revealed itself through the silence. A heavy, suffocating silence that lingered in every corridor and every locked room. It was the kind of silence built over years, brick by brick, secret by secret, until no one on the outside could even imagine what existed here. The first building inspected was the Administrative Pavilion, a structure designed to mimic the office of a luxurious resort. But inside the federal agents found nothing resembling hospitality. Instead, there were surveillance terminals, rows upon rows of screens displaying live camera feeds covering every inch of the island walkways, private suites, the beach perimeter, and even the common areas where the women were held captive. The logs revealed round-the-clock surveillance with detailed notes marking each woman's behavior: withdrawn, fearful, unresponsive, compliant. In an adjacent office, agents pried open a locked drawer containing 268 identification cards, passports, driver's licenses, and student IDs belonging to the women whose families believed they were studying abroad or attending leadership retreats. The dates beneath their photographs told a very different story. Many people had gone missing for months. Deeper inside the pavilion, agents located a small climate-controlled vault. Inside were 42 handwritten ledgers, each one tracking financial commitments from members of a private club. The pages recorded entry fees as high as $450,000 per visit, annual recurring contributions totaling $8.7 million, and event sponsorships reaching up to $22 million over a 3-year period. Every figure confirmed one undeniable truth: this island was no retreat. Between the reputation and the reality, have you ever questioned those student mentorship programs that seemed just a little too perfect? It was a marketplace. Across the courtyard, the second structure revealed an even darker network. Rows of locked storage units contained designer clothing. Boxes of high-end cosmetics and accessories purchased in bulk and all sealed were cataloged in a digital inventory system under encrypted labels. These weren't gifts, nor were they amenities. They were uniforms, performance tools, instruments of control. The agents also located a shielded communications hub protected by 3 layers of hardware encryption. There they found more than 19,000 archived messages routed through overseas servers, encrypted schedules, international passenger manifests, and coded cash withdrawals from accounts linked to individuals in Dubai, Nairobi, London, Toronto, and Stockholm. A folder simply titled Rotation meticulously detailed the travel itineraries of high-end visitors over the past 4 years. But the most shocking discovery came from beneath the central pavilion. A hidden staircase led down to an underground room, not a bunker but a war room. Along the walls hung global connection maps tracking financial flows, recruitment pipelines, and transportation routes with color-coded encrypted pins marking source universities, partner organizations, and foreign holding companies. This was the command center, the operational brain of an empire concealed behind the facade of academia. On a steel table in the corner of the room, agents discovered stacks of glossy promotional materials titled Women of Tomorrow, featuring Amina's face on the cover alongside inspirational quotes, images of smiling students brimming with hope and ambition and grand promises. Next to them lay a second stack of documents-approved candidate lists ranked by physical appearance, language fluency, academic prestige, and vulnerability score. By the time the agents had fully secured the compound, the truth was unmistakable. This island wasn't an improvisation. It wasn't a fleeting opportunity. It had been engineered, a fully operational, internationally funded system designed to exploit young women under the guise of mentorship, leadership, and global education. And for the first time, federal agencies could see the architecture of the entire machine. The fortress walls didn't merely conceal crimes, they orchestrated them. Long before the agents ever set foot on that island, the investigation had begun with something far less dramatic: the numbers. At first glance, the financial records from Atlantic Hills University appeared entirely normal. Scholarships, research grants, donor contributions. But nothing about the numbers aligned with the behavior of an ordinary university. Not the volume, not the velocity, and certainly not the destinations. Over a 5-year period, auditors identified $4.2 billion in transactions that bypassed traditional oversight channels, instead being routed through special projects, international research programs, and restricted charitable allocations. These entries were too clean, too structured, too consistent to be random. They had been engineered. Federal analysts reconstructed the money trail. It began inside the university. Hidden among routine payments were microtransactions. Thousands of them, always kept below regulatory reporting thresholds: $35, $49, $72. Individually meaningless, but when coordinated together, Bundled through automated scripts, they accumulated into offshore holdings worth more than $900 million. From there, the money split into multiple streams. One stream fed shell companies registered in Malta, Malaysia, and Mauritius. Another stream vanished into charitable organizations with no websites, no employees, and no physical offices, only bank accounts silently transferring millions of dollars. A third stream funded luxurious travel routes used to transport selected students overseas, airline tickets, private jet deposits, resort bookings, all of it charged to the academic exchange budget. Every dollar had a purpose. Every purpose was tied to a lie. Investigators discovered that Dr. Amina Hassan Warsameh had personally approved more than 7,400 financial authorizations through the university's internal review systems. Some were legitimate, many were not. The pattern was chilling. Travel budgets ballooned without any explanation. Consulting invoices appeared from supposed global leadership partners whose names never matched any verifiable entity, and donor gifts vanished into shell funds within hours of arrival. But the clearest red flag of all was the offshore accounts. The Cayman Islands alone held $412 million from transactions originating within university departments. The British Virgin Islands held $287 million in leadership development funds. Dubai contained $166 million labeled as women's empowerment initiatives, none of which ever reached a single student. When timelines were cross-referenced, the money flows aligned perfectly with each mentorship recruitment cycle, surging right around midterms when students were at their most vulnerable and exploding just before every island trip. The money wasn't merely funding the operation, it was orchestrating the entire machine. Financial managers, some unwittingly and others all too willingly, had processed transfers through encrypted systems running outside the university's main servers. When the agents finally gained access to the hidden ledger, they uncovered something even more alarming: a ranking of benefactors from 17 countries, each tied to average recurring contributions of $850,000 per quarter. Amina did not operate alone. She was the public face of a global investment portfolio, a network of financiers, intermediaries, and power brokers who funded the pipeline and consumed the services. Each transaction served as a brick, each offshore account, a pillar, each encrypted payment, a deliberate step toward the island. When investigators mapped the digital transaction flows in detail, the truth became undeniable. This was no side operation or compromised program. This was a $4.2 billion enterprise built on the respected facade of academia, propelled by international funding, shielded by offshore secrecy, a sleek, silent, lethal financial machine hiding in plain sight. By dawn on January 3, 2026, the island was no longer a sanctuary for the powerful. Helicopters circled above the fog. Federal vessels secured every shoreline. And for the first time in years, the fortress built on silence finally cracked as agents escorted the rescued women to safety. The sheer scale of what had been uncovered rippled through federal command posts like a shockwave. But the mission was far from over. What happened next would determine whether this network collapsed for good or simply re-emerged somewhere else. At 6:45 in the morning, the extraction teams escorted Dr. Amina Hassan Warsameh out of the underground planning room where she had been hiding. Her expression was calm, almost detached, as if she had rehearsed this very moment countless times. She offered no resistance. She made no denials. She simply asked one question: who talked? The agents did not answer. They did not need to. The evidence uncovered just hours earlier spoke louder than any confession ever could. At the time her arrest was confirmed, activities unfolded rapidly across the country. At 7:22 in the morning, a coordinated sweep began in 11 cities across the United States. Federal teams arrested 31 individuals linked to Amina's overseas corporation. Financiers, intermediaries, scientific collaborators, travel coordinators, and foreign brokers who had quietly powered her empire for years were taken into custody. In Los Angeles, 2 businessmen were detained during a private breakfast meeting. In Seattle, a tech investor was arrested as he prepared to board a private jet to Anchorage. In Chicago, federal agents raided a luxurious penthouse apartment where encrypted ledgers recorded payments exceeding $64 million. Meanwhile, international partners acted in parallel. By 8 o'clock in the morning, authorities in London, Stockholm, Nairobi, and Abu Dhabi had frozen 114 accounts belonging to sponsors and club members tied to the island's operations. Several withdrawal attempts totaling more than $38 million were blocked in real time. The financial machine that had propelled the island over the past half-decade came to a halt. But the investigation didn't end with arrests or frozen assets. As analysts reconstructed Amina's decade-long rise, they uncovered the most disturbing truth of all. The system had thrived precisely because it was built inside institutions that people trusted. Universities, charitable foundations, international leadership organizations, all of them had provided legitimacy, protection, and prestige. By 9:45 in the morning, as federal agents loaded the evidence crates onto secure transport vehicles, a silent realization settled over the task force. This case was far bigger than a single university president or a single island. It laid bare just how effortlessly a criminal enterprise could embed itself within the most respected institutions, not through force, but through influence, charm, and prestige. At 10:12 in the morning, as Amina was escorted onto a federal transport helicopter, the compound stood completely empty. The fog had lifted. Sunlight poured onto the concrete walls for the first time without any shadows hiding behind them. The empire she had built did not collapse because of a single mistake. It collapsed because the survivors finally found the courage to speak. Every agent refused to look the other way, and every secret she had buried finally rose to the surface. The most expensive lesson from this case is this: never let yourself be deceived by flawless facades. We tend to place absolute trust in prestigious titles and noble institutions, but the Atlantic Hills tragedy has proven that darkness can hide right in the heart of the light. Always stay vigilant and learn to recognize the warning signs of irregularity. Don't let vulnerability or dazzling promises lure you into a trap. Alertness and critical thinking remain the strongest shield to protect yourself. The empire of Amina has collapsed, but have the ghosts behind the academic gates truly vanished? $4.2 billion and hundreds of lives sacrificed is far too steep a price for blind trust in glossy facades. Is this the final victory, or merely the tip of a colossal iceberg still lurking beneath the surface? What do you think about the forces behind these horrifying numbers? Leave a justice comment below and share this video so the truth is always protected.